The transport shuttle shook hard as it dropped through the thick red clouds of 7. The metal walls groaned and screamed like a living thing in pain. Warning lights flashed yellow, then orange, then a deep angry red. Outside, winds strong enough to tear apart smaller ships howled against the hull. Inside the shuttle, 52 cadets sat strapped into their seats. They came from 14 different species across the galaxy. Some had fur, some had scales, some had skin in colors that humans would find strange. Blue, green, purple, gray. Some had too many eyes, some had no eyes at all. Some breathed oxygen, others breathed gases that would kill a human in seconds, and they wore special masks to survive. All of them were scared. A cadet named sat near the front. His species looked like tall, thin foxes that walked on 2 legs. They had large ears, golden fur, and eyes that could see in almost complete darkness. Right now, those eyes were wide with fear. His hands gripped the straps of his harness so tight that his claws had torn small holes in the material. Next to him, a female named tried to keep calm. Her species had smooth blue skin, no hair, and large black eyes that took up most of their faces. They were known for being logical and controlled, but even could not hide the slight tremor in her hands. Her skin had gone from deep blue to a pale, sickly color. Behind them sat a named. His people were built like walking boulders, gray skin as tough as stone, 4 arms, each one thick with muscle, small eyes that sat deep in a face that looked like it had been carved from rock by someone who had never seen a face before. They were famous for showing no emotion. They considered feelings to be a weakness, but its lower jaw was shaking just a tiny bit. And in the very back of the shuttle, in the last row of seats, sat a human named Danny Cole. Danny was 24 years old. He had brown hair that was a little too long and needed a cut. He had brown eyes that always seemed half asleep. He was not tall, he was not short, he was not muscular, he was not thin. He was, in almost every way that could be measured, completely average. Right now, while 51 other cadets trembled and prayed and wondered if they would survive the landing, Danny was trying to decide if he had packed enough sandwiches. He had brought 4, turkey and cheese. His mother had taught him how to make them when he was 8 years old, and he had never found a reason to change the recipe. Simple bread, turkey slices, 2 pieces of cheese, a little bit of mustard, nothing fancy. But it was food, and food was important. Danny counted the sandwiches again. 4. That should be enough for 3 days if he was careful. He also had some protein bars, a bag of dried fruit, and a chocolate bar that he was saving for an emergency. Emergencies, in Danny's experience, almost always called for chocolate. The shuttle shook again, harder this time. Several cadets screamed. Near the middle of the cabin started crying, tears running down her gray-green face. Her species had 4 arms and 2 hearts, but right now all 4 of those arms were wrapped around herself, and both of those hearts were beating too fast. Danny looked up from his bag and glanced around the cabin. Everyone looked terrified. He understood why. They were about to land on 7, one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy. It was classified as a Category 9, which meant that almost everything on its surface could kill you in creative and painful ways. But Danny had grown up on Earth. Earth was a Category 12. He went back to counting his sandwiches. The shuttle's speakers crackled to life, and a deep voice filled the cabin. "Attention, cadets. This is Instructor. We will be landing in approximately 4 minutes. Prepare yourselves." Instructor was a species that looked like someone had taken a praying mantis, made it 7 feet tall, given it 4 arms, and covered it in armor-like plates the color of dried blood. They had compound eyes that could see in almost every direction at once, and mandibles that clicked when they talked. Their translator boxes turned those clicks into words that other species could understand. They were one of the oldest species in the Galactic Coalition. They had been traveling between stars when humans were still figuring out how to make fire. They were known for being strict, disciplined, and completely without mercy. Had been training soldiers for 40 years. He had seen cadets from over 100 different species. He had watched them succeed. He had watched them fail. He had watched many of them die. He was very good at his job. The shuttle broke through the last layer of clouds, and the surface of 7 appeared below them. The cadets who could see out the windows immediately wished they could not. The planet was red, not a nice red like a sunset or a rose, a bad red, the red of old blood, the red of rust, the red of something that had died a long time ago but had not stopped moving. The landscape was covered in forests of black trees. They stretched toward the sky like the fingers of dead hands reaching up from graves. Between the forests were plains of dark rock and pools of liquid that bubbled and steamed. In the distance, mountains rose up like broken teeth against the red sky. And everywhere, things were moving. Flying things, crawling things, things that walked on too many legs and things that slithered without any legs at all. The planet was alive and it was hungry. "Oh, by the 7 moons," whispered, her voice was barely a sound. "We are going to die here." Made a noise that his species made when they were too scared to speak. It sounded like a small animal being stepped on. Even the who was supposed to feel nothing let out a low rumble that might have been a groan. Danny looked out the window. He studied the red sky, the black trees, the moving shadows in the distance. He thought about what he knew about this planet from the briefing materials he had read. "Huh," he said, "looks kind of like Arizona." The sitting next to him, a young male named, turned to stare at Danny with huge golden eyes. "What is Arizona?" asked. "Place on my planet. Desert mostly, gets really hot. Lots of things that can kill you. Snakes, scorpions, spiders, cactus." "Cactus can kill you?" "Some of them, yeah. And even the ones that cannot kill you can still hurt pretty bad. My cousin sat on one once. Took 3 hours to pull out all the needles." Stared at Danny for a long moment. Then he slowly turned back to face forward, his ears flat against his head. "Humans are strange," he whispered to himself. The shuttle touched down with a heavy thud. The engines whined as they powered down. The cabin lights changed from white to green, which meant they were clear to move. No one moved. Instructor appeared at the front of the cabin. He had not been strapped in during the landing. He had simply stood at the front, holding on to nothing, his magnetic boots keeping him in place. Now he looked over his cadets with compound eyes that showed no emotion. "Welcome to 7, he said. "Your training begins now." He pressed a button and the rear hatch of the shuttle began to open. Red light poured in. Hot air followed, along with a smell that was hard to describe. It was like copper and sulfur and rotting vegetation all mixed together. Several cadets gagged. "You will be divided into teams of 6, continued. "Each team will be given a basic survival kit and a map to the extraction point. You have 72 standard hours to reach that point. Anyone who does not arrive in time will fail. Anyone who activates their emergency beacon will fail. Anyone who dies will also fail, obviously." He paused to let that sink in. "The rules are simple. Survive, work together, reach the extraction point. Do not eat anything unless your scanner says it is safe. Do not drink any water unless you purify it first. Do not sleep without posting a guard. Do not make loud noises. Do not attract attention." He looked around the cabin, his compound eyes fixing on each cadet in turn. "There are 27 species of predator on this planet that consider beings like you to be food. There are 43 species of plant that are toxic to most galactic species. The temperature will drop by 30 degrees after sunset. The air contains trace amounts of sulfur dioxide. If you breathe too deep for too long, your lungs will begin to bleed." More cadets were crying now. Even some of the species that could not cry were making sounds of distress. Danny raised his hand. Size rotated to focus on him. "Yes, cadet, coal, human, Earth." "Sir, quick question. Is there a limit on personal food items? I brought some sandwiches, and I just want to make sure I am allowed to eat them." The cabin went silent. Every head turned to look at the human in the back row. Was still for a long moment. In 40 years of training cadets, he had never been asked that question. He had been asked many questions on the first day of an exercise. Questions like, "How do we survive?" and "What should we avoid?" and "Please, please, can I go home?" Never a question about sandwiches. "You may eat your personal food items," said slowly, "though I doubt you will have time to enjoy them." Danny nodded. "Thanks, sir, just wanted to check." continued to stare at the human. He had read the file on Danny Cole, nothing special. Average scores on all the entrance tests, average physical abilities, average intelligence. No exceptional skills, no unusual background, just a normal human from a normal part of Earth. But there was something in the human's eyes that had not seen before. Or rather, there was something missing. The thing that was supposed to be there, the fear, the panic, the understanding of danger, it was not there. Either this human was very stupid, or he was something else entirely. Decided he would be watching Danny Cole very carefully. Teams will be assigned now, announced. When I call your name, move to your designated area. He began reading off names. Cadets stood up on shaking legs and moved to join their teams. Some were relieved to be paired with friends. Others were horrified to be separated from the people they knew. Team 8 said, Cadet, 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 Cadet Cole. Danny stood up, grabbed his bag, and walked toward the rear hatch where Team 8 was gathering. He passed rows of terrified cadets and aliens who looked at him like he was a ghost. He did not notice. He was thinking about when would be a good time to eat his first sandwich. Team 8 gathered near the hatch. Danny looked at his new teammates. Though was doing her best to appear calm. Her species was known for being scientists and thinkers. They did not like violence. They did not like danger. They definitely did not like. But she was here because the Galactic Coalition Defense Force required all cadets to complete basic training, and basic training included survival exercises. The looked like a statue, 4 arms crossed over his massive chest, small eyes staring straight ahead. His species was known for being warriors, but even warriors got scared. He was hiding it well, but Danny could see the tightness in his shoulders. And were siblings, both. They looked almost identical, though was slightly taller and had a small notch in his left ear from a childhood accident. They stood close together, their golden fur bristling with fear. The last member of the team was a species that Danny had not seen before. She was tall and thin, with silver skin and eyes that shifted color depending on the light. She had long fingers, 6 on each hand, and a small mouth that seemed permanently curved in a slight frown. When Danny tried to remember her species from his training materials, he came up blank. "Hello," Danny said to his new team. "I am Danny, nice to meet everyone." They all stared at him. "Are you not afraid?" asked. Her voice was tight with the effort of staying calm. Danny thought about the question. Not really, no. "We are about to walk onto a Category 9 planet. Everything here wants to kill us." "I know, I read the briefing." "Then how are you not afraid?" Danny shrugged. "I guess I am used to it." Before anyone could ask what that meant, Instructor's voice boomed across the landing area. "All teams will now receive their survival kits. You have 10 minutes to check your equipment and prepare. After that, you will begin walking toward your designated starting points. The exercise officially begins at sunset. Good luck. You will need it." An assistant handed each team a large bag. Inside were the basics of survival: water purification tablets, emergency shelter material, fire starting equipment, a scanner that could identify toxic plants and dangerous creatures, a first aid kit, emergency rations that looked like gray bricks and probably tasted worse, and a single emergency beacon that would call for immediate rescue but would also mean instant failure. Danny looked through the kit with a practiced eye. Everything seemed good. The shelter material was thin but should hold up against wind. The fire starters were the chemical kind, reliable but limited. The scanner was a basic model, nothing fancy, but it would do the job. He was more interested in his own supplies. He had his sandwiches, of course, but he had also packed some other things. A good knife that he had bought at a military surplus store back on Earth, a small coil of strong cord, a flashlight with extra batteries, some water bottles, and a small book about local wildlife that he had downloaded and printed before leaving. Most cadets had not brought anything extra. They had trusted the standard kit to have everything they needed. But Danny had learned a long time ago that standard kits were designed for standard situations, and nothing about it was standard. The 10 minutes passed quickly. Teams gathered at different points around the landing area, waiting for the signal to begin. The red sun was already starting to sink toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the alien landscape. Team 8's voice came through their communicators. Your starting point is at bearing 075. Begin walking. You will find your first checkpoint marker after approximately 3 hours. Danny looked at his teammates. They looked back at him. None of them seemed ready to start walking into the hostile wilderness of an alien. Well, Danny said, let's go then. He started walking. After a moment of stunned silence, the others followed. The first hour was not as bad as most of them had expected. The ground was rough but solid. The black trees kept their distance, standing like silent watchers on either side of the path. The air was hot and smelled bad, but it was breathable. Danny walked at the front of the group. He moved with an easy pace, not too fast, not too slow. His eyes were constantly moving, looking at the ground ahead, checking the trees to the sides, glancing up at the sky. Behind him was trying to use her scanner on everything they passed. Every rock, every plant, every shadow. The scanner kept beeping with warnings. Toxic, dangerous, avoid. After 30 minutes, she turned it off because the constant beeping was making everyone more nervous. Walked at the rear, his 4 arms swinging by his sides. He was watching their back, making sure nothing followed them. His species had a warrior's instincts, and right now those instincts were screaming that they were being hunted. And stayed in the middle, close to each other. Their large ears kept rotating, picking up sounds that the others could not hear. Most of those sounds were not good. The silver-skinned one walked in silence. She had not spoken a single word since the teams were assigned. Danny was not sure if she could not speak or simply chose not to. Either way, she moved gracefully, her long fingers occasionally reaching out to touch a rock or a plant, then pulling back quickly. Something is following us, said. His voice was like gravel being crushed. Everyone except Danny stopped walking. What's voice was high with fear. Where, how many? I do not know how many, but I can feel it. We are being watched. His hands were shaking as she reached for her scanner. Should we run? No, Danny said. He had stopped walking, but he did not turn around. His eyes were fixed on a point in the trees to their left. Running is the worst thing we can do. Why? Asked. Running makes you look like prey. Prey runs, predators chase. That is how it works on every planet I have ever heard of. Then what do we do? Danny was quiet for a moment. He was listening. The others could not hear what he heard, but he could sense it. A presence in the trees, something big, something patient. We keep walking, he said. But we walk together, stay close. Make noise when you walk, talk to each other, look confident. Predators like easy kills. They do not like difficult ones. How do you know this? Demanded. How do you know anything about alien predators? I do not know about alien predators specifically, but predators are predators. They all think the same way. Danny finally turned around to look at his teammates. On my planet, we have animals called lions, big cats about this tall. He held his hand at chest height. They can run faster than any human. They have claws that can tear through flesh like paper. If you run from a lion, you die. But if you stand your ground, if you look it in the eyes, if you make yourself look big and loud and dangerous, sometimes, most of the time, it will decide you are not worth the trouble. Sometimes, repeated, most of the time. Nothing is certain, but I would rather have a chance than no chance. They kept walking. The presence in the trees followed them for another 20 minutes. Danny could feel it moving parallel to them, studying them, deciding if they were food. Then, without warning, it was gone. Whatever had been watching them had decided to look elsewhere. It left, said. He sounded surprised. The human was right, it left. Of course I was right, Danny said. I told you predators are predators, they do not like hard targets. Was staring at Danny with a new expression. It was not quite respect, but it was close. Where did you learn these things? Growing up, my planet has a lot of predators. You learn how to deal with them, or you do not grow up at all. What kind of planet is Earth exactly? Danny thought about how to answer that question. He could tell them the truth. He could tell them about the bears and wolves and sharks and crocodiles. He could tell them about the poisonous snakes and spiders and frogs. He could tell them about the natural disasters, the hurricanes and earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. He could tell them about the diseases that had killed millions of humans throughout history. But that seemed like a lot of information for a first day. So he just shrugged and said, "It is a Category 12, but it is home, so we do not think about it much." The silence that followed was very loud. "Category 12?" His voice was barely a whisper. That is 3 categories higher than this planet." "Yes." "And you just live there without special equipment, without protection." "We have houses, and clothes, and medicine, but mostly, yes, we just live there." "How?" Danny smiled slightly. "We adapt. It is what humans do. Put us anywhere, and eventually we figure out how to survive. Deserts, frozen wastelands, underwater, in space. We find a way." The team walked in silence for a while after that. Each of them was thinking about what they had just learned. The human walking in front of them, the one who had asked about sandwiches and seemed completely unconcerned about landing on came from a planet even more dangerous than this one. It explained a lot. After 2 more hours of walking, Danny stopped. "We should rest here," he said. They had reached a small clearing between 2 rock formations. The rocks were tall enough to provide shelter from the wind, and there was only one approach, which would make it easier to watch for danger. "Should we not keep moving?" asked. "Instructor said we have to reach the checkpoint." "We have time, and if we do not rest, we will be too tired to deal with whatever comes next. Better to stop now while we have a good spot than to keep walking until we collapse." It made sense. The others agreed. They set up a basic camp, spreading out the shelter material against one of the rocks and arranging their bags in a circle. Danny looked at the sky. The red sun was almost touching the horizon. Soon it would be dark and the real danger would begin. "We should eat," he said. "We will need our strength." He reached into his bag and pulled out a sandwich. Turkey and cheese on wheat bread. He unwrapped it carefully and took a bite. The others watched him with expressions that ranged from confusion to horror. "You are eating," said. It was not a question. "Yes." "We are on predators are hunting us. We have no idea what dangers the night will bring. And you are eating a sandwich." "I was hungry." Stared at Danny for a long moment. Then, very slowly, he reached into his own bag and pulled out an emergency ration brick. It looked like something that had been dug out of a swamp. "I suppose I am hungry too," he said. One by one, the others started eating as well, had some nutritional paste that her species preferred, and shared a package of dried insects, which was apparently a delicacy. Ate nothing, just sat in silence and watched the sky. They ate in silence as the sun finally sank below the horizon. The sky went from red to purple to black. Stars appeared, strange constellations that none of them recognized. The temperature began to drop. And in the darkness, things began to move. Danny heard them first. Sounds in the trees, rustling, clicking. The soft pad of feet on rocky ground. He could not see what was making the sounds, but he could feel them out there, circling the camp. "They are back," whispered. His ears were pressed flat against his head. "The hunters are back." "There are more than one now," said. He had stood up, his 4 arms raised in a fighting stance. "I count at least 4. "5, said. It was the first word she had spoken since they had started. Her color-shifting eyes were fixed on the darkness. "No, 6. Danny finished his sandwich and carefully folded the wrapper, putting it back in his bag. Then he stood up and walked to the edge of the camp. "What are you doing?" hissed. "Get back here." Danny did not listen. He walked until he was standing at the very edge of the firelight, looking out into the darkness. He could not see the creatures, but he could sense them. They were out there, watching, waiting. "I know you are there," Danny said. His voice was calm, conversational. "I know you are thinking about attacking. Let me give you some advice. Do not." The rustling stopped, the clicking stopped, the night went silent. "We are not prey," Danny continued. "We have weapons, we have fire, we have numbers. If you attack us, some of you will die, maybe all of you. Is that really worth it? Is a meal really worth dying for?" Silence stretched on. Then slowly the sound started again. But this time they were moving away. The creatures, whatever they were, had decided to find easier food. Danny walked back to the camp and sat down. "How did you do that?" asked. His voice was shaking. "I told you, predators think the same everywhere. They want easy kills. I made it clear we would not be easy." "But they could not understand you. They are animals." They understood enough. Tone of voice, body language, confidence. Animals are smarter than people think. They know when something is not worth fighting. Was looking at Danny with an expression he could not quite read. "You truly are not afraid, are you? This is not an act. You genuinely feel no fear." Danny considered the question. "I would not say I feel no fear, I just handle it differently, I guess. Fear is useful. It keeps you alert. It keeps you alive. But if you let it control you, if you let it make your decisions, that is when you die. So I feel the fear, I acknowledge it, and then I do what needs to be done anyway." "That is," paused, searching for the right word. "That is very strange. Most species either feel fear and react to it, or they do not feel it at all. Acknowledging it but not being controlled by it is unusual. Maybe it is just how humans work." They decided to sleep in shifts, 2 people awake at all times, watching for danger. Danny volunteered to take the first shift with. The night was cold and dark and full of sounds. Things moved in the darkness. Creatures called to each other with voices that sounded almost like language. The wind carried strange smells, some sweet, some foul, some that had no description. Danny sat with his back against a rock, watching the darkness. Sat nearby, his 4 arms wrapped around himself for warmth. "I have a question," said after an hour of silence. "Go ahead. Why did you join the Defense Force? Your planet is obviously dangerous. Your people are obviously capable of surviving anywhere. Why leave Earth to fight in wars that do not involve you?" Danny thought about the question. It was a good one. He had asked himself the same thing many times. "I wanted to see what was out there," he said finally. "Earth is home and I love it, but I always wondered what the rest of the galaxy was like. What other planets looked like. What other species were like. The Defense Force gave me a chance to find out." "And are you satisfied with what you have found?" Danny looked up at the alien stars. "I have only been out here for 6 months. I have seen 4 planets, met maybe 100 different species. It is not enough to be satisfied yet. I want to see more." Was quiet for a moment. "My people joined the coalition because we had to. Our planet was dying. We needed new resources, new places to live. It was not a choice. It was survival." "I am sorry." "Do not be. It happened long before I was born. But I sometimes wonder what it would be like to come from a planet that was not dying. To have options. To be able to choose your own path." "Everyone has options," Danny said. "Sometimes they are just harder to see." The night continued. More sounds, more movement, but nothing attacked. Whatever was out there had decided to leave Team 8 alone. When the red sun finally rose over the horizon, all 6 members of the team were still alive. It was a good start. The second day was harder. The temperature rose quickly once the sun came up. The air became thick and heavy, full of moisture and strange smells. The black trees seemed to press closer, their branches reaching toward the team like grasping hands. Danny led the way again. He checked the map regularly, making sure they were heading in the right direction. The checkpoint was still hours away, through terrain that got rougher with every step. Around midday, stepped on something he should not have. There was a wet cracking sound, and suddenly there was screaming. His foot had gone through what looked like solid ground but was actually a thin crust over a pit of something that burned. He pulled his foot out immediately, but the damage was done. His fur was smoking. His skin underneath was red and blistering. "Do not touch it," Danny shouted as reached for his brother. "That will spread the burn to you." "But he is hurt. I have to help him." "Water, we need to wash it off with water. Get the purification tablets. Hold him still." They worked quickly, pouring clean water over his foot while he screamed in pain. The burning liquid washed away, revealing skin that was badly damaged but not destroyed. "He cannot walk," said. Her voice was grim. "The damage is too severe. He will not be able to put weight on that foot for at least a day." Then we carry him, Danny said. That will slow us down significantly. We might not make the checkpoint in time. Then we do not make it in time. We do not leave anyone behind. Looked at Danny with something like surprise. You would fail the exercise for a teammate you have known for less than a day. Yes. Why? Because that is how you build a team. You do not abandon people when things get hard. You stick together. You help each other. Otherwise, what is the point? Considered this, then he nodded slowly. You are correct, we will carry him. They made a simple stretcher from branches and shelter material. Did most of the carrying, his 4 arms making the job easier. But they still moved slowly, and the checkpoint seemed to get farther away with every step. As they walked, Danny told stories to keep everyone's spirits up. He told them about the time he got lost in the mountains near his home when he was 12. He had been hiking with his friends, took a wrong turn, and ended up alone in the wilderness for 2 days. He survived by building a shelter, finding water, and eating berries that he remembered from a book. When the rescue team finally found him, he was tired and hungry but otherwise fine. He told them about his grandmother who had grown up in a part of Earth called Alaska. She had taught him how to survive in the cold, how to start fires without matches, how to catch fish with nothing but a piece of string and a hook made from bone. He told them about his father who worked as a forest ranger. He spent his days hiking through wilderness, watching for fires, helping lost hikers, and occasionally dealing with bears that got too curious about campsites. Your family sounds very dangerous, said. He was walking close to his brother's stretcher, one hand resting on shoulder. Not dangerous, just prepared. On Earth, you have to be ready for anything. The planet does not care if you are not paying attention. It will hurt you anyway. That sounds exhausting, said, living in constant danger. You get used to it. It becomes normal, like breathing. They stopped to rest in the early afternoon. Danny rationed out his sandwiches, giving half to because the injured needed the energy more than anyone else. Tried to refuse, but Danny insisted. You are hurt, you need food to heal. This is not a discussion. Ate the sandwich slowly, tears running down his golden fur. It is good, he said quietly. Thank you. You are welcome. While the others rested, Danny climbed to the top of a nearby rock to get a better view of their surroundings. He could see the checkpoint in the distance, a small metal structure at the base of a hill. It was maybe 3 hours away. They could make it if they kept moving. But between them and the checkpoint, something was wrong. The trees in that direction were moving, not with the wind, against it. Something big was pushing through them, and it was heading toward the checkpoint. Danny climbed back down. We have a problem, he said. Something is between us and the checkpoint, something big. How big? Asked. I could see the trees moving from a kilometer away, so very big. Can we go around it? Danny looked at the map. Going around would add at least 5 hours to their journey. With injured, they might not make the deadline. Not easily, he admitted. But we might have to. I do not want to know what something that big looks like up close. They started moving again, trying to angle away from whatever was pushing through the forest. But the forest had other plans. The path they chose led them into a narrow canyon with walls too steep to climb. They had to keep going forward. The sounds got louder, crashing, breaking. The ground was starting to vibrate. It is coming toward us, said. Her voice was tight with fear. It knows we are here. Keep moving, Danny said. The canyon has to end somewhere. They moved as fast as they could, but with on the stretcher it was not fast enough. The crashing sounds got closer. The ground shook harder. Dust fell from the canyon walls. And then they saw it. It was at the end of the canyon, blocking their path. A creature the size of a small building, with a body like a massive beetle covered in armor plates. It had 6 legs as thick as tree trunks and a head that was mostly mouth. That mouth was full of teeth the size of swords. It saw them. It made a sound that was somewhere between a roar and a screech. It started moving toward them. Back, Danny shouted. Everyone back. They turned and ran. Even carrying on the stretcher moved faster than Danny thought possible. But the creature was faster. Its 6 legs carried it forward with terrifying speed. Danny grabbed a rock from the ground and threw it at the creature. It bounced off the armor without leaving a mark. That did not work, he said to himself. New plan. He looked around frantically. The canyon walls were too steep. The creature was too fast. They were going to die. Then he saw it, a crack in the canyon wall, a gap just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. There, he shouted, pointing. Everyone into that crack now. They did not hesitate. Went first, then, had to turn sideways and squeeze through within his arms. Danny went last, sliding into the gap just as the creature's teeth snapped at the air where he had been standing. The creature tried to follow them, but its massive body would not fit through the crack. It roared in frustration, the sound echoing through the canyon like thunder. It scraped at the rock with its teeth, trying to widen the gap. Keep moving, Danny said. It might find another way around. The crack led into a cave system, dark, narrow, full of strange sounds, but the creature could not follow them here. They walked in darkness for what felt like hours. Danny used his flashlight to light the way. The caves twisted and turned, sometimes narrowing so much that they had to crawl. Whimpered with every movement, his injured foot brushing against the rock. Finally, they saw light ahead. The caves opened into another canyon, this one smaller and quieter. The checkpoint was visible in the distance, less than an hour away. We made it, breathed. I cannot believe we made it. Not yet, Danny said. We still have to get to the checkpoint. Stay alert. They moved carefully across the open ground. Every shadow could hide danger. Every sound could be a threat, but nothing attacked. The massive creature had apparently lost interest or found easier prey elsewhere. They reached the checkpoint just as the sun began to set. The checkpoint was a small structure, barely more than a metal box with a door. Inside were supplies, water, and a communication device. Danny activated the device and reported in. Team 8, all members alive. One injured but stable, requesting instructions for the next phase. Instructor's voice came through the speaker. Team 8 acknowledged, your performance has been noted. Rest for the night. Tomorrow you will continue to the secondary checkpoint. Understood, sir. Danny turned off the device and looked at his team. They were exhausted, scared, and in one case injured, but they were all alive. Good job, everyone, he said. We made it. Sat down heavily, her blue skin pale with exhaustion. I did not think we would survive that. When that creature appeared, I was certain we were going to die. We almost did, Danny admitted, but we did not. That is what matters. How do you stay so calm? Asked. How do you keep thinking clearly when everything is trying to kill you? Danny thought about the question. It was one he had been asked before in different forms. Practice, he said finally, and experience. I have been in dangerous situations before, not exactly like this, but similar. Your brain gets used to fear after a while. It stops shutting down and starts looking for solutions. Your planet must be truly terrible, said. There was something like respect in his gravelly voice. It is beautiful, actually. Dangerous, yes, but beautiful. Maybe someday I will show you. They ate, drank, and rested. Sfoot was treated with better supplies from the checkpoint. He would still have trouble walking, but the pain was manageable. As the others fell asleep, Danny sat by the door watching the darkness outside. The sounds of 7 filled the night, creatures calling, wind howling, the constant reminder that this planet wanted them dead. But Danny was not worried. He had survived the first day, and he would survive the next and the one after that. Because that was what humans did. They survived. The third day began with rain. Not normal rain. 7 did not do normal. This rain was thick and warm and smelled like something had died in it. It fell from the red sky in heavy drops that left stains on their clothes and equipment. Do not let it touch your skin for too long, warned. She had scanned the rain with her device. It contains mild acids, not enough to cause immediate damage, but prolonged exposure could cause burns. They covered themselves as best they could and started walking. The path to the secondary checkpoint led through a forest of black trees. These trees were different from the ones they had seen before. They were taller, thicker, and their branches reached toward each other overhead, forming a canopy that blocked out most of the light. In the darkness between the trees, things moved. "More predators?" asked nervously. His ears were flat against his head and his fur was bristling. "Probably," Danny said. "Stay close, keep moving." The forest seemed endless. They walked for hours, the darkness pressing in around them. Sounds echoed from every direction, clicking, rustling, the soft pad of feet. They were being watched by dozens of eyes, maybe hundreds. Was walking now, limping but mobile. His foot still hurt, but he refused to be carried. He wanted to earn his survival, not have it given to him. Around midday, they found a clearing. In the center of the clearing was a body. It was a cadet from another team. Her gray-green skin torn open by something with very sharp claws. Her emergency beacon was clutched in her hand, but it was dark. Either she had not activated it in time, or something had prevented her. Looked away, made a sound of distress, even seemed shaken. Danny walked closer to the body and examined it carefully. "Whatever killed her was fast," he said. "She did not have time to fight back. One strike from behind, probably never even saw it coming." "We should not stay here," said. Her voice was soft, musical, completely at odds with the horror in front of them. "Agreed, but we should take her supplies. She does not need them anymore, and we might." "That seems disrespectful," said. "She would want us to survive. Any soldier would." They took what they could use: extra water, rations, a backup scanner. Then they said a quick prayer, each in their own way, and kept moving. The forest got darker as they went deeper. The trees got closer together. The sounds got louder. And then Danny stopped. "What is it?" asked, instantly alert. "Listen." They listened. At first they heard nothing but the usual sounds of the forest. But then gradually they became aware of something else. A pattern in the sounds, a rhythm, like breathing but from something very, very big. "It is all around us," Danny said quietly. "The forest, it is not just trees." "What do you mean?" asked. "I mean the forest is alive, not the trees individually. The whole thing, it is one organism and we are inside it." As if in response to his words, the ground beneath their feet shifted. Not much, just a slight movement like skin twitching. But it was enough to confirm what Danny had suspected. "We need to get out of here," he said. "Now run." They ran. The forest came alive around them. Roots burst from the ground, reaching for their feet. Branches swung down like arms. The canopy closed overhead, trying to trap them in darkness. Used his forearms to tear through the branches, and used their natural agility to dodge the roots. Ran with her scanner held out, looking for a path. Moved like water, flowing around obstacles without slowing down. Danny ran at the back, making sure no one fell behind. A root grabbed his ankle and he slashed at it with his knife. The cut bled something dark and thick, and the root retreated. "It is bleeding," he shouted. "The roots can be hurt. If it grabs you, cut it." They fought their way through the living forest. Every step was a battle. Every second was a victory. The organism was vast and powerful, but it was slow. It was not used to prey that fought back. Finally, impossibly, they burst out of the trees and into open ground. The forest's roots reached toward them, stretching beyond the tree line, but they could not follow. The team ran until they were 100 meters away, then collapsed on the rocky ground, gasping for breath. "What was that?" panted. "A predator," Danny said. "The biggest one I have ever seen. The whole forest was its body. The trees were like fingers. The roots were like arms. We were walking right into its stomach." "How did you know?" asked. "How did you figure it out?" "The breathing. No normal forest breathes like that. And the way the trees were positioned, too regular, too organized. Nature is messy. This was designed." Stared at Danny with an expression he was starting to recognize. It was the look people got when they realized that humans were not quite what they had expected. "Your species," she said slowly, "is extremely unsettling." "Thank you." They rested for a few minutes, then continued toward the checkpoint. The rest of the journey was relatively uneventful. A few small predators tested them, but nothing they could not handle. They reached the secondary checkpoint just before sunset. This checkpoint was larger than the first. There were representatives from several other teams already there, looking exhausted and terrified. Some teams were missing members. Some teams had not arrived at all. Instructor was waiting for them. Team 8, he said, his compound eyes studied each of them in turn. All members survived, including the injured one. That is unusual. We worked together, Danny said simply. So I have heard. Eyes fixed on Danny specifically. Reports have been coming in from other teams, stories about a human who walks through danger like it is nothing, who talks to predators and makes them leave, who finds paths through impossible terrain. I just do what needs to be done, sir. Indeed, was quiet for a moment. The final phase of the exercise begins tomorrow. You will travel to the extraction point. It is a 12-hour journey through the most dangerous part of this planet. Many teams will not survive. I suspect yours will. We will do our best, sir. I know you will, turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing, Cadet Cole. After this exercise is complete, I want you to report to my office. We have things to discuss. Yes, sir. Walked away. Danny watched him go, wondering what the instructor wanted to discuss. That sounded important, said. Maybe. We will find out after we survive tomorrow. They ate, rested, and prepared for the final day. The mood was tense but hopeful. They had survived 2 days on a one more day was nothing. Danny sat apart from the others, eating his last sandwich. Turkey and cheese on wheat bread, his mother's recipe. It tasted like home. Sat down next to him. It was the closest she had been to anyone since the exercise began. You are different from the others, she said quietly. I have been told that before. No, I mean you are different from all the species I have met. There is something inside you that I do not understand. What do you mean? His color-shifting eyes fixed on his face. When we were in the living forest, when the organism was trying to kill us, you were not just fighting for survival. You were enjoying it. Danny considered this. Was she right? Had he enjoyed it? I would not say I enjoyed it, he said slowly. But I was not suffering either. There is something about danger, about the challenge of survival, that feels right to me, like I was built for it. Perhaps you were. They sat in silence for a while, watching the red sun sink below the horizon. My species can see emotions, said eventually. Colors that shift around people, showing what they feel. Most beings here are surrounded by fear, black and gray clouds that press against them. You are different. Your colors are clear, bright. What does that mean? I do not know, but I want to find out. The final day came. The extraction point was on the other side of a valley that earned the nickname Death's Door from previous training groups. The valley was filled with every danger Seven had to offer. Predators, poison plants, unstable ground, and atmospheric conditions that could change without warning. Teams set out at dawn, each taking a different route. Team 8 chose a path that Danny had mapped out the night before, based on everything he had learned about the planet's patterns. The most dangerous areas are also the most avoided, he explained. That means predators concentrate on the safer paths, looking for easy prey. If we go through the hard terrain, we might face environmental dangers but fewer hunters. It was a risky strategy, but the team trusted Danny. They had no reason not to. The path was brutal, climbing over rock formations that cut their hands, crossing streams of something that was definitely not water, passing through areas where the air was so thick with sulfur that they had to hold their breath for long stretches. But Danny was right. They saw predators in the distance, hunting other teams on easier paths. They heard screaming echoing across the valley as teams were caught and torn apart. They watched emergency beacons activate, red lights blinking in the distance as cadets gave up and called for rescue. Team 8 kept moving. Halfway through the valley fell. One moment he was walking. The next, the ground beneath him collapsed, revealing a sinkhole filled with sharp crystals. He dropped 3 meters before catching himself on the edge, his forearms gripping the rock. The others rushed to help him. They formed a chain, holding who reached down to grab his arm. Danny anchored the chain, bracing himself against a rock. "Pull," he shouted. They pulled, slowly, painfully, rose out of the sinkhole. His lower arms were cut badly, bleeding dark blood, but he was alive. "Thank you," said. His voice was rough with pain. "You could have left me." "We already discussed this," Danny said. "We do not leave anyone behind." Looked at Danny with his small, deep-set eyes. "I have met many warriors in my life. You are not the strongest. You are not the fastest. You are not but you are the best leader I have ever followed." "I am not a leader. I am just trying to get everyone home." That is what leadership is. They bandaged his arms as best they could and kept moving. The extraction point was close now. They could see it in the distance, a shuttle waiting on a flat stretch of ground. One more hour, and they would survive. 50 minutes from the extraction point, they encountered the final obstacle. A creature stood between them and their goal. It was not as big as the one in the canyon, but it was bigger than anything else they had faced. A hunter, lean and fast, with claws designed for killing and eyes that radiated intelligence. It was not alone. 3 more of its kind emerged from the rocks surrounding the team. "We cannot fight them," said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "They are too fast, too strong." "She is right," agreed. "Even with all of us, we would not survive." Danny looked at the creatures. They were studying the team, communicating in sounds that were almost like speech. They were intelligent. Maybe not as intelligent as the beings they hunted, but smart enough to plan. "I have an idea," Danny said, "but you are not going to like it." "Tell us anyway." "These creatures are intelligent. They hunt smart, not hard. If we make ourselves look like more trouble than we are worth, they might let us go." "How do we do that?" Danny took a deep breath. "I am going to challenge the leader to a fight." Silence. "That is insane," said. "Yes. You will die." "Maybe." "Then why?" demanded. "Why sacrifice yourself?" "Because if I do not, we all die. At least this way there is a chance." Danny stepped forward before anyone could stop him. He walked toward the largest of the creatures, the one that was clearly in charge. He stopped 10 meters away and met its eyes. "I challenge you," he said. His voice was loud and clear. "1-on-1, if I win, you let my team go. If you win, you can have me, but you let them go anyway." The creature studied him. Its eyes, cold and calculating, moved over his body, assessing the threat. Then slowly, it lowered itself into a fighting stance. "Danny, no," shouted. But Danny was already moving. He did not have claws, he did not have speed, he did not have strength. All he had was a knife and everything he had learned growing up on a Category 12. The creature lunged. Danny dodged barely, feeling the wind of its claws passing his face. He struck back with his knife, aiming for the creature's leg. The blade cut deep and the creature roared. It was faster than him, it was stronger than him, but it was not used to prey that fought back. Every time it attacked, Danny was not quite where it expected. Every time it left an opening, Danny struck. Blood flowed. Some of it was Danny's, more of it was the creature's. The fight lasted 3 minutes. 3 minutes of dancing with death, of dodging strikes that would have killed him instantly, of finding tiny opportunities and taking them. Finally, the creature stepped back. It was bleeding from a dozen wounds, not fatal but painful. It looked at Danny with something that might have been respect. Then it turned and walked away. The other creatures followed. Danny stood alone on the rocky ground, covered in blood, barely able to breathe. But he was alive. "I cannot believe that worked," he said to himself. The team rushed to his side, started treating his wounds, supported him so he would not fall, and were both talking at once, their language mixing with Galactic common in a jumble of relief and amazement. Only said nothing. She just looked at Danny with her color-shifting eyes, and something in her expression said that she finally understood. Humans were not just survivors. They were something else entirely. The shuttle was waiting. They walked the final 50 minutes in silence, too exhausted for words. Danny leaned on for support, his wounds bandaged but still painful. When they finally reached the extraction point, Instructor was there. He looked at Team 8, at their torn uniforms and bandaged wounds and exhausted faces, and his compound eyes showed something that might have been approval. "Team 8, he said, "all members present, all members alive, congratulations." They boarded the shuttle, the doors closed, the engines hummed to life, and 7, that beautiful nightmare of a planet, dropped away beneath them. Danny sat by a window and watched the red world shrink. He was tired, he was hurt, but he felt something else too. He felt alive. "You know," said, sitting down next to him, "when I first met you I thought you were stupid. No offense. None taken. Then I thought you were crazy. Some kind of damaged individual with no sense of self-preservation. That's reasonable. Now I realize you are neither, you are just human." Paused. "That is much more terrifying." Danny laughed. It hurt his ribs, but he laughed anyway. "I will take that as a compliment." 2 days later, Danny reported to Instructor's office as ordered. The office was simple: a desk, 2 chairs, a window that looked out at the stars. "Sit," said. Danny sat. "I have been reviewing the reports from the exercise," said. "Every team that encountered you has stories. Stories about the human who was not afraid, the human who talked to predators, the human who challenged a hunter to single combat and won." "I just did what needed to be done, sir." "Yes, I know. That is what concerns me." "Concerns you, sir?" Leaned forward, his compound eyes fixed on Danny. "I have trained thousands of cadets over 40 years. I have seen bravery. I have seen skill. I have seen determination, but I have never seen what I saw in you." "What did you see, sir?" "Acceptance." Let the word hang in the air. "You accepted the danger. You accepted the possibility of death. And then you kept going anyway, not because you were brave, but because that is simply what you do. It is your nature." Danny did not know what to say to that. "Your species fascinates me," continued. "A Category 12, I have read the reports, but until I saw you in action, I did not truly believe them. No species should be able to survive in such conditions. No species should be able to adapt to such constant danger. And yet your people not only survive, they thrive." "We do not really think about it that way, sir. Earth is just home." "Yes, that is exactly my point." Stood up and walked to the window. "I am recommending you for a special program, advanced survival training. The next exercise will take place on your—" Danny blinked. "You send aliens to Earth." "We do. Most do not complete the program. Many do not survive at all. The ones who do become the best soldiers in the coalition." "Why are you telling me this, sir?" Turn to face him. "Because you will be leading the exercise. You will teach cadets from across the galaxy how to survive on you will show them what it means to be human." Danny thought about this for a long moment, leading an exercise on Earth, teaching aliens about his home, showing them the bears and snakes and storms and everything else that made Earth what it was. "I will do my best, sir." "I know you will," moved back to his desk. "One more question, Cadet Cole. During the exercise, when you challenged that creature to single combat, what were you thinking? What made you believe you could win?" Danny considered the question carefully. "I did not believe I could win," he said finally. "I just believed I would not give up, and sometimes that is enough." Studied him for a long moment. Then slowly, they made a sound that his translator identified as laughter. "Humans," said, shaking his head. "The galaxy's most terrifying species, and you do not even realize it." Danny smiled. "Maybe that is why we are terrifying." 6 months later, Danny stood on a beach in Australia. Around him, a group of alien cadets were experiencing Earth for the first time. A was staring at the ocean with wide eyes. A was testing the sand with his feet, confused by how soft it was. A had just discovered seagulls and was absolutely convinced they were predators. Stood beside Danny. She had requested to be assigned to the program as his assistant. She said it was because she wanted to understand humans better. Danny suspected it was because she did not want to miss the chaos. "Your ocean," she said, watching the waves, "is it dangerous?" "Very. Sharks, jellyfish, rip currents, riptides, and about 100 other things that can kill you. And people swim in it anyway. All the time, it is fun. Shook her head slowly. Your species is insane. We have been told that before. A scream echoed across the beach. One of the cadets had encountered a crab. Danny sighed and started walking toward the commotion. That is just a crab, he called out. It is harmless, mostly. Mostly, the cadet shrieked. Well, it can pinch you pretty hard, but it probably will not. Probably. Danny smiled. This was going to be an interesting few months. As the sun set over the Australian beach, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Danny thought about his life. He had grown up on it, he had trained on another. Now he was teaching others to survive on his. It was strange, looking at Earth through alien eyes. The things he had always taken for granted, the dangers and challenges that were just part of daily life, were terrifying to beings from safer worlds. But that was the point. Humans had evolved to survive anywhere. They had adapted to every environment their planet threw at them. Deserts, frozen wastelands, jungles, mountains, the depths of the ocean. And then they had left their planet and started adapting to the galaxy. Danny pulled out a sandwich from his bag, turkey and cheese on wheat bread, his mother's recipe. Watched him eat with an expression that was equal parts exasperation and admiration. You brought a sandwich, she said, to a survival exercise. Of course. Even now, even after everything. Especially now, good food is important. It keeps you going when everything else tries to stop you. Laughed, it was a strange sound, her species' equivalent of human laughter, like wind chimes in a storm. Humans, she said, the galaxy's most confusing species. Danny finished his sandwich and carefully folded the wrapper. The sun was almost gone now, and the stars were starting to appear. Strange constellations, different from the ones he had grown up with, but beautiful in their own way. Tomorrow, the real training would begin. He would lead these cadets into the wilderness of Australia, show them the snakes and spiders and crocodiles and everything else. He would teach them how to survive on a Category 12. And he would probably bring more sandwiches. Because that was what humans did. They faced impossible challenges, adapted to impossible conditions, and somehow found time to eat lunch while doing it. It was not bravery, it was not insanity, it was simply nature. Human nature. And the galaxy was still trying to figure out what that meant. The end.